Brian Trascher. He's the United Cajun Navy vice president. He's on the program now. Brian, how are you, sir?
Oh, I'm just living the dream, GB. Living the dream.
Are you still in North Carolina?
I tell you what, since we last spoke, I've been back to Louisiana, to Florida, back to Louisiana, and about to go to North Carolina again. And, people see us online in different places, but just want everybody to know that we still have teams both in North Carolina and Florida. Just because I'm not there doesn't mean, they're not getting babysat if I'm not there, but that doesn't mean we don't have people there.
Yeah, I was going to say they're pretty capable. I've seen members of your team. They're pretty darn capable. So tell me about this militia that FEMA is talking about.
Well, it turns out it was like the worst militia ever because it was just one guy who went on, and I believe this is the correct story. He went on TikTok and was showing videos of federal employees and federal vehicles going around, I guess, near his property or near where he lives. And he was showing videos of some of them that were armed, which, it's not like, I don't think it's that big of a deal that some of these, federal officials are armed. It's like, cops and in now North Carolina's an open carry state anyway,
yeah.
Right? So
everybody was armed when I went down there.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah. So he made a comment. I believe he made a comment that was construed as like, he was not happy about it. Maybe he was going to do something about it. Somehow that turned into there's an armed militia. Fortunately, the North Carolina National Guard came out fairly quickly and said, "Hey, look, we talked to our troops. They haven't seen anything like that." Now, the feds, like overabundance of caution. And just in case this rumor is true, we're going to.
Wait, you're breaking up badly. Brian, are you there?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I said, yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. So I would say, I understand the feds, in an abundance of caution for their employee safety, pausing things. But my understanding is that it was just a brief pause and they're back at it. But again, there's been so much misinformation, not just on the internet, but, from the feds also. Glenn, we both know that, the federal government will tell you, don't believe your lying eyes. And then their allies in the media, unfortunately, will stand in front of the burning Hindenburg and tell everybody that it was just a mostly peaceful blimp landing. Right. So nobody's helping. You know what I mean? It doesn't help. Just say, if people see something and they actually get it on video, then, just don't tell them it's not true. Say we're investigating.
Yeah.
At least try to tell the truth.
Well, that's difficult for a lot of people to do, especially at the higher levels of government. I feel bad for the FEMA workers because a lot of these people are just, volunteers, or they're people that, are, very low level that are just going out and trying to help. Some of them are part of the red tape. And I'm going to leave out the ones at the very tippy top that I have a little bit of contempt for. But nobody should ever threaten any of them. I don't think it's a problem to say, you know what, thank you, but no thank you. We as a community have decided you can turn your trucks around and go home. We have this. There's no problem with that, but there should never be any threats made.
Correct.
It's just not.
Correct, yeah, because, at the very top, there are political appointees who are confirmed by the Senate, but, like you said, you're talking about employees and sometimes in their 20s and 30s, and they're out there, and not all of them are with FEMA. They have people from the Forestry Service, different federal departments that are out there, trying to just beef up the staff that they have and the presence that they have. We've heard reports that people are turning down help from federal agencies and saying, no, we want the Cajun Navy. And as heartwarming as that is, like, they got to understand that we're just a tiny nonprofit. We can't get to everybody. Yeah. So we wouldn't suggest turning down any help. But of course, to your point, any communities have the right to, self-reliance and doing things on their own.
Yeah. And I understand. This used to be something that Americans were proud of, that we're going to take care of it ourselves. And no, thank you. We believe the government is the problem. We should be skeptical of our government. We shouldn't be violent against our government or threaten violence, but we should be skeptical of them, especially when they deserve that side eye. When they have not been there for 7 to 10 days and then they show up because the pressure is, on them. I think it's reasonable to have the community come to their own conclusion that I don't know that they really care about us. So I'm not going to be a photo op. But,
right.
Well,
I can tell you, a reporter asked me, what the genesis or my opinion of the genesis of this distrust in government. And I said, well, I think it goes back to how this nation was founded. They were distrusting of a crazy king. And despite having a 13 colony lead, the British still got their asses thrown off this continent. Right. So it goes back a long way. And then, of course, a lot of stuff that went on during COVID didn't help. It's helpful, always question your leaders. It's your duty as a citizen to question your elected leaders and their policies, and make your voices heard at the ballot box is the best advice I can give.
I mean, George Washington said, treat government as you treat fire. If you're in control of it, it's fine. If you're not in control of it, it's deadly. Don't trust the government. It was in one of my favorite stories from history on federal help is the hurricane that came in, I think in the 1920s in Texas, and the citizens met the government. Hoover sent a bunch of people down with a bunch of relief, and they met them at the state line and said, "Turn your trucks around. We don't need your help." And he went back and he said, "Hey, Texans need the money. Let's raise the money and, pass this law so we can give them money." Congress turned it down and said, "No, we're not in that business. That's not our deal." And Texas raised more money than what the government was thinking about doing, and they did it on their own. That's the way it should work.
Yeah, and look, I'll point you to a situation closer to home here. 1815, a fleet of British man of war showed up in Lake Bourne, just north of New Orleans. Louisiana wasn't a state yet. Most of the people living in New Orleans didn't even know they were American citizens yet, and yet they asked them to come down and defend the city, and they had to enlist a band of pirates because they're the only ones that had any gunpowder and rifles, and they were able to thwart a force of 3,500 British soldiers who had put foot on ground in Chalmette, Louisiana. So, it's always up to the citizens to act first and take care of themselves. And if the cavalry shows up, great. But if it never does, you got to always assume that it won't.
So what are the lessons that we should be pulling out of this whole situation, Brian?
Well, first of all, always, I was listening to your, I hear your ad all the time about My Patriot Supply. We might need to get linked up with those guys, but it's not a bad idea to have, at least a few weeks or a month's worth of food that's, that'll stay good. Just stored somewhere, because you never know when something like this is going to happen to you. Make sure that you have a plan. If you know that a disaster is coming, make sure you can execute it. And again, just collaborate with your community. Like there has to be some sort of local response plan that goes beyond what the government's doing, because I think a lot, especially local governments, I think have the best intentions on how to respond to these things. But when your police and your fire and your EMS employees, who are usually out there doing a great job every day, and I'm not saying I'm not saying they ever don't do a great job, but I mean, when they get hit too, when their house floods and their roof rips off, they have other problems besides their job. You know what I mean? So, just make sure you can be as self-reliant as you can, because the cavalry is always going to come. You just don't know when. That's why we talked about it last time. FEMA's a second responder. That's why we're the first responders, or we try to be.
Brian, are you former military?
I'm not. I'm not. But right. I come from a long line, and we, veterans make the best volunteers for us, because you can't freak them out.
Right. And what I learned from this being on the ground is, a lot of vets are like, what was all of that for? If we just gave it back to them, what was all of that for? I'll tell you, I really think that it's going to be former military that saves us, because if there are natural disasters everywhere, if there's real distrust and unrest in the country, you guys are just so good at organizing and just saying, no, relax. You over there, you just do this, you go find this, and you do that. I mean, it was so well organized by you guys and military vets that were just in the area.
Yeah, and I love the saying, the most powerful thing a man can carry into combat is a purpose.
Yeah.
You can't just be aimlessly going out shooting at things. But we just had this morning, there's an area in Florida that some FEMA representatives called and asked if we could. They knew we had some supplies delivered in the area. They asked if we could send some down. I said sure. FEMA don't have to confiscate nothing from us. We'll give it to them. You know what I mean? It's all donated to us. It's not ours. We're supposed to give it to people that need it. So we work with them when we can, and then obviously sometimes it's they're slow or they're this or they're that. I mean, people can criticize the job they're doing, but they are doing a job, and we just say, hey, let them do it. Be kind to their workers, and let's get through this recovery, because it's going to be a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah, Brian, thank you so much. God bless you, and
thanks, Glenn. Always.
God bless the Cajun Navy. I appreciate it. Thank you.
We love you. Thank you.
Yeah, love you too. It is. It's a remarkable and really, really good thing that we're seeing from volunteers. And as he said, maybe we should get together with the My Patriot Supply people. We're already on that. Mercury One is putting together a disaster team unlike anything I think anybody has. I mean, it's remarkable. The team that we're going to have for the next disaster, because we've been slowly finding them, and we just work together so well. We don't get into their business, they don't get into our business, and if they are clean and efficient, we help them. And so we thank you for everything you've done for Mercury One at mercury1.org.